Back about 50 years ago, more proof of a different kind. January 14, 2020 by Anna von Reitz. I live in Alaska, where the single most obvious, visible, and oldest still standing icon of Scalar Tech still stands, HAARP. I not only knew or still know the people most crucial to its development, I know how it works and why it exists. Believe me, I know the dangers that this technology in general presents, and also the blessings it could provide. So the whole issue is what we do with our own money and our own minds? Are we to be trusted with ourselves? Or are we 2-year-old children with another kind of hammer? That's a question for us to decide. We need to choose, and we all need to know how this technology is used and deployed, and we should not allow any amount of politicians hiding slush funds or militarists yelping about national security concerns deter us. Also, about the same time that HAARP was being recognized as an issue of concern, another problem surfaced: chemtrails. They appeared in concert with 2 other plagues upon humanity, delivered by the same basic group of what can only be called fake scientists, aided and abetted by, yes, dear, fake journalists. You have to know the other 2 parts of the story before we get to chemtrails. The first part of the story, or maybe I should call it, the script, was provided by a Stanford professor, Paul R. Ehrlich, author of The Population Bomb. Ehrlich did some simplistic computations followed by dishonest extrapolations, and convinced all sorts of people that our entire planet was doomed by the looming specter of human overpopulation as a mathematical certainty. No less and less, of course, we ceased all manufacturing, all agriculture as we know it, and most of all, stopped having sex and producing children. If we didn't willingly self-castrate, the world was doomed. If we didn't stop eating anything but grass, the world was doomed. If we didn't ration water, the world was doomed. And he even projected that this cataclysm would happen sometime in the 1980s, so there wasn't much time to prepare. Right. Well. It's 2020. We are still here. No signs of utter destruction yet. I personally think that Professor Ehrlich dropped a half-dozen zeros from his calculations. Read a 4 as a 9. Something like that. And in any case, his theories have been thoroughly disproven along with his timelines. We should be concerned about overpopulation, but there is no excuse for the widespread hysteria Ehrlich caused and apparently, no end to the number of trusting people he misled. The population bomb is credible-sounding story trumped up in scientific terms, and what you get is the equivalent of a pernicious urban myth being used as the excuse for ill-considered political action and investment of public funds. The population bomb is still causing clueless teenagers to have nightmares 40 years after it was proven to be bunk. I read The Population Bomb in about 1970, while it was still hot off the presses. I knew the math was bunk. I sniffed. I wrinkled my nose. I thought, why would anyone in their right mind be peddling this? But I moved on without answering that question. It was one of those odd aberrations like the IRS that I flagged, but I didn't dig into it at the time. At about the same time, another ugly lie reared its head, only this one was brought forward and resuscitated from the early 19th century, the greenhouse gas theory. This theory postulates that the warming effect that our atmosphere has on the Earth is not just a result of insulating us like a warm blanket, but that certain kinds of gas in the atmosphere create a heat pump driven by those gases reflectively radiating heat and interacting with, and at the same time, being radiatively equilibrated within the same system. That's like saying my foot is inside and outside my shoe at the same time. And it violates the second law of thermodynamics. It's utter, complete, and obvious bunk. So why, in the name of good sense and logic, are we still talking about it 196 years after it was first proposed, and rejected? And again, I wondered, why is anyone in the scientific community talking about it, when they know it's bunk? Why are politicians parading this moldy doggerel out and using it as excuse for plugging the public purse? Well, bingo, that's the point, isn't it? Most politicians know and care nothing about science. If it sounds plausible, they will buy it literally, and split the resulting purse with the fakirs bringing the tripe forward. Regrettably, once this path to the pork barrel was discovered, there was no stopping the proliferation of plausible causes and issues, often tongue-in-cheek, which nonetheless yield pay days. The liar's syndrome thus breached the walls of our science faculties and university departments, wormed its way through the defense contractor maze, and landed full-blown in the national laboratory system. From there, it ping-pongs back and forth. I did my bit to debunk the greenhouse gas theory whenever and wherever I heard anyone making reference to it, but once again, it acquired the status of an urban myth. As proven and demonstrated by the greenhouse gas theory, such a myth may make no sense. It may have no scientific merit or validity at all. It may break axioms so set and reliable as to be considered natural laws with no suggestion of a viable mechanism and certainly no experimental results or evidence in its favor, but the talking heads will still plow onward, oblivious of any distinction between fact and fiction, so long as it makes a buck. So we have two pieces of quasi-scientific hokum, the population bomb and the greenhouse gas theory, both reappearing about the same time, for no apparent reason. In retrospect, it's easy to see that these both contributed to the proliferation of a form of mass hysteria predicated on ignorant faith in science, and that both contributed to the public's acceptance of another even bigger lie, human-caused climate change, purportedly the result of skyrocketing levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Forgive me for observing that with free carbon dioxide amounting to 1/300% of the atmosphere, it can skyrocket all it wants, and for a long time, without having any effect on anything. In fact, if we skyrocketed atmospheric carbon dioxide all the way to 1% of the atmosphere, basically 300x its present concentration, the only likely effect would be faster accretion of coral reefs and other calcium carbonate structures, and greener, more robust plant life. And more oxygen for us to breathe. Oh, my, I am running to the kitchen, checkbook in hand, have to stop the terrible impacts of increased carbon dioxide. Duh. At the same time, a very real and pressing problem has developed, oxygen and ozone depletion, caused in part because of numbnuts' efforts to suppress carbon dioxide levels and deliberate criminal activities. Those criminal activities include sabotage of the Fukushima nuclear reactor, killing off vast amounts of algae causing oxygen depletion, diatoms, fish, and marine mammals, deforestation of the Amazon basin, more trees gone and more oxygen depletion, destructive manipulation of the world's jet streams causing floods and droughts, both, and chemtrails. And who is pushing all of this? Religious nutcases who think they have to fulfill biblical prophecy to keep their street cred. I am not going to quote all the lala from Revelation, but you've all read the "and the angel poured out," and "a third of all the creatures of the ocean perished," and "a half of all the land animals perished," and so on, but that is what they are trying to do. The point is that the true God isn't doing any of this to us or to the earth, religious nutcase zealots are doing this. They are also trying to carry out by their own hands, the prophecies about a third of mankind being destroyed by fire. Here we have proof of it being planned and put in motion way back in 1985, and by who? The Vatican. They minted a coin celebrating the glories of chemtrails, so we don't have to ask where all the chemtrails are coming from. We know. https://tinyurl.com/skytrails. What most people haven't known was what was in the chemtrails, and what the composition of the chemtrails implies. It had to be ferreted out by concerned people doing painstaking soil sampling over a number of years in different locations, but the facts dribbled in, and here's what it amounts to. Chemtrails contain a slurry of flammable industrial wastes that are conducive to spontaneous combustion and chemical fires. All the odd earmark components of chemtrails are flammable. All of them. Lithium, flammable, potentially explosive when exposed to air and water. Barium, a flammable solid, produces hydrogen gas, may ignite spontaneously. Strontium, emits flammable gases on contact with water. Magnesium, highly flammable, especially when powdered. Aluminum oxide dust, forms explosive mixtures in air. Thorium, pyrophoric, ignites spontaneously. Put their ability to control and manipulate the jet streams to cause artificial droughts together with their chemtrail campaign ongoing for 35 years, blanketing the Earth with flammable metallic elements, and what have you got? God, destroying the Earth by fire, Alaska in the summer of 2019, Australia in the winter of 2019-2020, and only God knows where the nasty bastards will strike next, but we do know who is responsible for it. He just happens to be a pope with an advanced degree in chemistry and not a shred of plausible deniability for peddling climate change or carbon taxes or dumping chemtrails on us, either. Now, I am going to put it straight to the Roman Catholic Church. This is your problem. Along with the pedophilia and all the rest of it. There is no reasonable doubt in my mind that someone, inside or outside the church, torched Notre Dame on purpose and perhaps as a demonstration and a warning. There is no doubt in my mind that unless the church stops pursuing these evils, including the manipulation of the jet streams and the dumping of chemtrails, unless the church wholeheartedly repents from all of this agenda, the retaliation against the church and its members and its institutions will only escalate. Innocent Catholics will be paying the price for the demonic elements in the church leadership who are responsible for this madness, men who have betrayed your trust, denigrated your faith, and shown themselves to be enemies of all mankind. Take a good look at the pictures from the fires in Alaska and Australia. See the innocent animals roasted alive? See the funerals of firemen and others caught in these deliberate, man-made infernos. This is nothing but the immolation sacrifice these madmen are making to their god, Moloch. It has nothing to do with anything Christian at all. In fact, it is distinctly anti-Christian. So the first thing you want to do is tell them that you know who they are and that you are not fooled after all. Express your disgust and dismay over their use of chemtrails and their support of the phony carbon tax narrative. The second thing you want to do is stop exposing your families to this. Protect your children. Keep them home and out of Catholic schools until this evil is purged from the church. Third, withhold your money and labor and support. If the church will not repent, leave it. Do not be part of what comes to it as a result of the evils that it is stubbornly engaged in. Fourth, warn all your family members, friends, and neighbors, anyone who will listen. Let them know what you found out. These gigantic fires are no accident. They've been set up, planned for, since at least 1985. Fifth, get busy and ride your politicians like horses. Let them know what you found out, too. Give them the same drill you give the church officials. Sixth, alert anyone and everyone that you know in the fire protection services, the police, and the military. Give them a copy of this article if you want to. They are the ones most at risk. They are the ones most directly involved in fighting these fires. Ask them if they want to risk their lives so that these actors can have their fire sacrifices and rampage around committing crimes against nature and humanity. I am fully in favor of taking pitchforks inside their low vibrational fence and routing them out of St. Peter's to answer for this, like so many hedgehogs. If you enjoy having Anna's latest articles made into videos, please consider making a purchase from Ed's website sacredintuitiveelements.com. Thank you.